You know what nobody warns you about. Being overly prepared can quietly become a nightmare. At first, it feels like you're doing the right thing. You're planning ahead, improving yourself, waiting for the perfect moment. But here's the thing about preparation. It has this sneaky side effect. It starts turning into postponement. Days go by, then years. And one day you look up and realize you've been standing at the edge of your own life this whole time, just waiting to feel ready. Meanwhile, time didn't wait for you. I lived like that for years. I showed up to work, paid my bills, answered my messages, made all these plans for some future version of myself I kept promising I'd become. And I genuinely thought I was being smart about it. Careful, responsible, But somewhere along the way, responsibility became a place to hide. Entire seasons passed, and I wasn't actually there for any of them. Then one night, I was just exhausted from constantly thinking about what should come next. I sat down and did nothing. No phone, no goals, no trying to fix anything. Just the moment in front of me. I didn't realize it at the time, but this is what Zen actually points to. Not self-improvement, not escaping your problems, just direct experience. Being here instead of trying to be somewhere else. And in that quiet, I noticed something I'd been skipping over my entire life. The space between things. That pause after work ends. The silence right before you fall asleep. In Japan, they have a word for this. Ma. It means the emptiness that gives meaning to everything around it. Nothing changed that night. I mean, my life looked exactly the same. And yet, something ended. If this is sounding familiar to you right now, just stay with me. Because this is where the waiting finally starts to fall apart. You ever feel like life is moving all around you, but somehow you're just stuck at the starting line? That was me for years. I'm Daniel, and I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. Planning out my future, working on myself, waiting until I finally felt ready to really live. Every single day was the same. Wake up, go to work, come home, repeat. Bills, emails, lists, deadlines. And I kept telling myself the same thing. Once I finish this, I'll finally start. But here's what I didn't realize. All that preparation had become a trap. The longer I waited, the heavier everything felt. Weekends just blurred together. Moments I should have been enjoying, they slipped right through my fingers. I didn't even notice how much time I'd wasted until one evening when I came home completely drained, flopped on the couch, and just stared at nothing. My phone was off. All those plans I'd been obsessing over sat there untouched. I didn't move, didn't think. I just sat. My uncle in Japan probably would have called this Zen. He tried teaching me about it years ago. Sitting quietly, paying attention to the moment, noticing your thoughts without getting caught up in them. At the time, I thought he was being weird, but there I was, doing exactly that without even realizing it. And for the first time in forever, I felt this strange weight lift off my chest. Nothing was solved. My problems were all still there. But at least that constant buzzing in my head had finally quieted down. Of course, that wasn't the end of it. Sitting still didn't magically fix my life. Work emails kept piling up. Responsibilities were still waiting. And anxiety, it crept right back, and whenever I started thinking about everything I needed to fix, the more I tried to hold on to that calm feeling, the more it seemed to slip away. Some nights I'd just give up and scroll through my phone until my eyes hurt, pretending that counted as resting. But deep down, I could feel something had shifted, even if I didn't fully understand what it was yet. That's when I started noticing these tiny pauses I'd been ignoring my whole life. Those quiet moments between finishing one task and starting another. The few seconds before a meeting starts. That calm while you're waiting for the elevator. Normally, I would have rushed right through them or filled them with my phone. But now, I found myself actually paying attention. It was subtle, almost invisible, really, but it felt like life was quietly slipping back into my hands, little by little. I didn't have a name for what I was experiencing, but I felt it. I felt space opening up. I felt something real for the first time in years. Even after that night on the couch, I thought I'd figured it out, like if I just sat quietly every now and then. Life would feel lighter from that point on. Yeah, reality had other plans. Work emails didn't stop coming. Bills didn't pause. My friends didn't suddenly wait around for me to catch up with my life. The second I stepped back into my usual routines, my mind started racing again. That familiar voice whispering, "You're still behind, Daniel. You need to hurry up." But something was different now. I started noticing these spaces I'd always just skipped right over. The quiet, completely unremarkable moments I used to treat like they didn't even count. Waiting for the elevator, staring at the subway map, standing in line for coffee. Normally, I'd be on my phone or already thinking about the next thing on my list. But now I catch myself just being there, for no reason at all. Just noticing the hum of the city around me, the chatter of people passing by, that faint smell of coffee in the air. I thought about my uncle in Japan. He used to talk about the importance of space, this concept called the space between things. At the time, I had no idea what he meant, but now I was starting to get a glimpse of it. The space between tasks, the silence between conversations, those empty moments scattered throughout your day. They weren't gaps that needed to be filled. They were the part of life I'd been completely missing. It wasn't easy at first, I'll be honest. It felt like I was wasting time. My inner voice kept shouting at me, "You should be doing something." But I forced myself to pause anyway. And slowly, I realized those pauses weren't empty at all. They were full of life. All those little moments I'd been rushing through, that's actually where clarity started growing. Some mornings I'd take the stairs instead of the elevator, deliberately slowing myself down. I'd notice the way light shifted through the windows, the sound of my own footsteps echoing down the hallway. At work, I'd pause for just a moment before answering an email, just breathing. People probably thought I was distracted, maybe even lazy. But for the first time in years, I felt this sense of calm creeping into my days. It wasn't dramatic or anything. There was no magic switch that flipped. Just quiet moments stacked on top of other quiet moments. And somewhere in the background, I felt this subtle shift happening, like a thread weaving itself through my day, connecting me to the world in a way I'd never noticed before. My uncle never explicitly said, "This is Zen," or "This is Ma." But now I understood what he'd been trying to tell me all along. Life isn't only in those big moments you spend so much time planning for. Life is in the spaces between. And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was just surviving my days anymore. I was actually present for them, just when I thought I was finally getting it. Life had to remind me how stubborn old habits really are. One Monday, my boss dropped a project on me with a deadline that felt completely impossible. Emails started pouring in, meetings stacked on top of each other, and every instinct I had was screaming, "Rush, hurry, don't stop, don't you dare pause." For a moment there, I slipped right back into being the old Daniel, the one who lived in constant anxiety, who treated life like some race he could never actually win. But then I remembered something my uncle told me years ago. We were sitting in this quiet park in Japan, and he said, "Daniel, sometimes the only way to move forward is to stop trying to move." I literally laughed at him when he said it. I thought it was just one of those cryptic things older people say. But now I actually understood what he meant. I couldn't control everything. I couldn't plan my way out of this chaos. But maybe, just maybe, I could sit with it, notice it, let it be what it was without fighting it every second. So I did something that terrified me. I paused. Right in the middle of everything. I shut my laptop for 5 minutes. closed my eyes, breathed, and just let all that noise exist without reacting to it. My heart was pounding. Emails kept flooding in. The deadlines didn't magically pause for me. And yet, I felt this small but undeniable shift. The panic loosened its grip just a little. The world didn't collapse around me. I realized I didn't need to control every single second just to survive it. Things changed after that. Subtly, but they changed. I started noticing this hidden rhythm to life I'd been missing. That brief pause between finishing one call and starting another. The calm right before a meeting starts. Even the silence in my apartment when I'd get home at night. I couldn't name what I was experiencing yet, but it felt like clarity. Like I was finally seeing the world without all that mental noise that had been suffocating me for years. Weeks went by, and those moments of pause just kept stacking up. I noticed myself laughing more easily, actually enjoying my meals, listening to my friends instead of mentally running through my to-do list while they talked. I even caught myself savoring the mundane stuff, the hum of my refrigerator, the way morning sun hit my desk, the subtle rhythm of footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. And I realized something. Life wasn't waiting for me to feel ready. It had been happening all along, quietly, patiently, without asking for my permission. That's when it finally clicked. I remember my uncle's words again, and suddenly they made sense. Not as some lesson I needed to learn or advice I needed to follow, but as actual experience. I didn't have some magical breakthrough. There wasn't this dramatic moment of revelation, but I saw clearly, for the first time in my life, that the life I'd been waiting for wasn't somewhere out there in the future. It was right here, right now. It always had been. After those weeks of noticing the small pauses and just letting life exist around me, something shifted. Not overnight, not in some dramatic movie scene kind of way. Life didn't suddenly become easier or anything like that. Deadlines still loomed. Emails still piled up. Responsibilities didn't magically disappear, but I could meet them differently now. I started my mornings with just 5 minutes of quiet, noticing the light coming through my window, the hum of the city waking up around me, and I realized something simple but kind of profound. I didn't have to wait until I felt ready to actually live. The work, the stress, the noise, they were all part of life, not obstacles keeping me from it. Even when I'd get home after a long day, instead of just collapsing and mindlessly scrolling through my phone, I'd pause, take a deep breath, and just be present for a minute. It wasn't perfect, though. Some days I'd fall right back into the old habits. I'd overthink everything, rush through my day, worry about what was coming next. But each time that happened, I'd remember my uncle's words and those quiet moments I discovered on my own. Life doesn't wait, and neither should I. The awareness wasn't some flashy, monumental thing. It was subtle, woven into the everyday. And honestly, that's what made it real. I started noticing all these connections I'd been ignoring for years. The way my friends laughed, the quiet patience of my colleagues, even the smiles from strangers on the street. I realized these tiny moments were the actual threads of life. Small, easy to overlook, but endlessly meaningful. Those pauses between tasks, the spaces I used to dismiss as empty, that's where everything was actually happening. Looking back now, I finally get it. I hadn't been late to my own life. I'd been there all along, just completely distracted by the noise in my head and this illusion that I needed to keep preparing for something. What I'd been searching for in all those books, all that planning, all that advice, I found it in the quiet, in the stillness, in the pauses, in just accepting what is. Life didn't wait for me. I didn't wait for life. And for the first time, I felt it, fully, unhurried, alive. Because here's the thing. Waiting never started anything anyway. I did.